Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever I find you on this beautiful earth plane. My name is Taryn, and for those of you that are new to my space, I'd love to take this opportunity to introduce myself. So I am the loving custodian of Wildflower and Heart Sense Healing, which is part of the Golden Wildflower Group. That is why my website is Golden Wildflower. And part of that is Wildflower Healing. And when I asked what I should label myself as we know, we don't like to subscribe to labels, yet it is something that is kind of required in this space, especially when you're on podcasts and part of multi-author books, which I have been part of both. And that was, these words were asked to be strung together: holistic, transformational, healer. And boy, oh boy, did I have a wild ride reconciling with the energy and the name behind healer. Because as we know, we do not heal others. We are here simply in our capacity within the healer within us to guide everyone, who's in our space, guide you back home to your own inner healing, to your own inner healer, for your own transformation, which we always love to do holistically: body, heart, mind, and soul. So I am a holistic transformational healer. I am a brain-based therapist. So I work directly with the nervous system through some psychodynamic training and some eye position pointer work, working really deep in the nervous system from the bottom up, and it is absolutely transformational. I am also an Akashic record guide, a divine feminine way shower, best-selling published author, and a keeper of grandmother wisdom. My mission really is to bring, share, and shine a frequency of heart sense healing. It reminds us the vibration of higher love. I really do regard it a deep, deep privilege and honor to guide you on your journey to remember, to reconnect, to realign to your innate divine inheritance, which is what we're going to be speaking about today, of abundance, abundant sovereignty, abundant grace, abundant wealth. Knowing that home is where the heart is, and the heart of your home is within, where all of you are welcome. So you're welcome to reach out to me at Taryn, Taryn, at goldenwildflower.co.za. You can find me on Facebook, either as Taryn van der Merwe or Wildflower and Heart Sense Healing. But that will all be in the below of today's recording on YouTube. So wealth codes. If you know me, you know that I only share and shine from a space of congruence. So only things that have come into my consciousness and that have had an impact in my life am I willing to share with you. And today it is around wealth consciousness. So a couple of months, probably even years ago, because the years just flop into each other. A couple of years ago, I went into my Akashic records, because if you also know me, you know that my big why is that I believe every single one of us should be accessing reading from our Akashic records. I believe it is our sacred information, our sacred divine truth, and it should be a rite of passage. It should be what everyone gets access to. And basically, we're in our records all the time. We just don't know that that is the space that we are getting our ahas from, and those connect the dots and those, out of world kind of understandings and deep insights. What we do in this physical reality is that we learn how to do it consciously. We learn how to be in our records, heal and transform consciously. So I was in my records, and if you would like to learn how to access and read from your Akashic records, you're welcome to private message me. But for today, we are speaking around wealth consciousness. And when I was in my records, I wanted to understand what was happening to me financially. Financially, I've had many highs and lows. So I have overvalued money, I have undervalued money. I have laughed at huge amounts of money, thinking it's just like play money, and I have been in the depths of being at the lowest of the low because I couldn't even afford a loaf of bread. So I know the highs and the lows that come with money in particular. And I was in my records and in a lot of curiosity around my financial situation and what was being asked of me. And the message was clear. The message was, Taryn, you have adorned, and these are the words that were spoken to me, you have adorned yourself with the falsehood of wealth consciousness. So I went exploring in my records what this meant and where to from there. And basically what I was also navigating at the time is that when I was in corporate, I was really banking in the cash. I was on the top of my game. I was salesperson of the year in and year out. I was selling materials handling, yellow equipment. I was selling big machines to mining houses. And I was really, really, like I said, at the top of my game. And when it came to my family, my children in particular, they were still very, very small. They're still small. You know, my youngest is 10 and my oldest is 15. So he's not quite small anymore. But you know that they're still reliant on us as their guardians. And so when I was at the top of my game and really thriving in corporate, I had a lot of freedom, a lot of time and space to myself for the most part, until I didn't. Until things started changing. And what I've noticed is that corporates are either going progressive, so they're really starting to understand the human as the employee as the individual, and that the individual has all of these working components within them, not only their physical health, but their emotional health, their mental health. And then there is a holistic approach to the spiritual self. And a lot of companies are going progressive. I, unfortunately, was part of a company that was going very regressive. So I'm also seeing that with my clients, that a lot of companies are going, they're regressing, they're getting even more fear-based. And I got to a stage where I had to biometrics, I had to log in with my fingers. My manager would be flagged if I left a minute early or if I got to work a minute late. And I am in Chinese cosmology and astrology. I am a horse. I'm an earth horse, born in 1978, and I absolutely need freedom. And that's why I chose selves, because I needed to be out and about. I could not be confined and constructed to four walls. It would absolutely just destroy me. So all of a sudden, I had all this money. And anything that my children needed, I just threw money at it because I could, right? Until I started my business. And I realized that there are a lot of inconsistencies when you are an entrepreneur. There are also a lot of benefits that I got in corporate that were now on my plate, in my budget, whereas a lot of my entire car was taken care of because I was in sales, from the installments to the insurance to the petrol to the servicing. So petrol is gas for those. So I always have to remember my international community. So, and your tires, maintenance, service, all was taken care of by the company. Now all of a sudden that's on my lap in my budget. Anyway, what I realized is that, and why I was in my records at this particular time, is because I was dealing with the thread of feeling like a failure. I was actually feeling like a failure because my finances weren't what I was used to. And I would set up my commission in such a way that I would draw from it. I would get like this I had massive accounts, I had massive sales at one stage. And I would actually draw from that monthly. So I would know for 6 months to a year I had a stable income, and that gave me a lot of freedom. And so anything I needed, I would throw money at. Anything my kids needed, I would throw money at. But I got to the stage in corporate where I was leaving home at 6 a.m. and I was possibly only getting home between 4 and 6 p.m. My kids were being dropped off at school at 6:15 in the morning. They would have to stay late after care, and I would probably only fetch them between 4 and 5 at night. And I thought I was doing great as a parent, and I really was. You know, they had everything they needed, and we had great holidays, and anything that they boo-bawed or batted for within reason, they got. We had beautiful birthday parties and all of these things. So I really thought that I was being an incredible mom, which I know I was at the time, yet there was so much more that I was missing out on, and that my entrepreneurial journey has afforded me. So now I have 2 children at 2 different schools because they have 2 completely different needs. One likes to be at school. We leave home at 6:30 because he absolutely loves to be at school early. And the other one only starts at 8 p.m. and absolutely only wants to be there at 8 p.m., 8 a.m., sorry, 8 a.m. So I'm able to drop the one off, come home, do a little bit of whatever I do in the morning, and then drop them off only a bit later. He's also a teenager, so now I've learned about how the teenage body and brain works, and that they are actually designed to sleep late and wake up later. So that's actually working for him. I'm there when their school closes, any functions, I'm there. I get to do drop-offs at gym and pick up. I get to do soccer practice and all of these things. But because I wasn't able to throw I wasn't able to throw money at a lot of situations that were arising, I felt like a complete failure. So I was in my records, feeling like a failure. And that's when I was shared with me that I had adorned myself with the falsehood around wealth and around wealth consciousness. And they shared that we have been set up to believe that success looks a certain way, and that success is coupled to our bank account. And if our bank account is saying a certain thing and announcing a certain figure, well, then we've arrived, then we're successful, then we're on top of our game, then we can present ourselves as an expert. And if it's not, well, then there's something lacking in your life and you are the problem. And well, you're actually quite a failure. And that's what I was feeling. And when I was processing the records, I actually had to acknowledge and realize that my kids had more of a mother now in my entrepreneurial journey than what they ever did in my thriving corporate career. They have an accessible mom. They have an emotional, physical, spiritually accessible mom than what they ever did before. They might not have a fully financially resourced mom, but they have all these other qualities that a mom gets, that I get to share with them. And that is wealth consciousness as a parent, as a conscious parent. I'm by no means perfect. I work on my relationship with my children daily, weekly, monthly, through various other mentorship programs and support structures. The truth is I'm more available for my children now, yet I was feeling back then like I had completely failed my children. And it was one of the 3 depths of lows that I had to deal with in 2022. There were 3 lows that I never thought that I would reach, and one of them was feeling like a failure because I wasn't able to financially throw money at things that were presenting themselves. So that's what was in my records, and that's where this wealth code activation came from. And what the message that came through for me was and is, and this is the invitation to you today, is that we really are here to live in the vibrancy that we have come here to be. And part of that right now, and it will change and it is changed, but right now, money is a part of living in vibrancy. Yet it is not the only aspect of wealth that we can attain. So wealth consciousness becomes this big blanket that actually incorporates so much more, and also of money. So we're looking at abundant. And remember, if you know me too, you'll know that I always share the story about the word or the vibrancy or the frequency of abundance. So we always speak about abundance. Yet, if we research what abundance means, it just means a large amount of something. So I always like to be a little bit more specific about what abundance I'm actually calling in, because I certainly don't want to be calling in. And those of you who know me will know that I will say, I do not want to call in a big pile of shit. So abundant prosperity, abundant freedom, especially big for me, abundant sovereignty, abundant authentic truth, abundant opportunities, abundant health, abundant money. So there are so many things related to wealth consciousness that includes money, and that also has so much space for abundant grace. So the other thing that was shared with me in the records is that not only have we adorned ourselves with the falsehood of wealth consciousness, and we have coupled success to our bank accounts, and determining whatever our bank accounts are saying determines whether we are successful or not, whether we can present ourselves as an expert or not. And yet there's so much more to us living in vibrancy than just our bank accounts, that it is a very big part of the system right now, but we know the system is changing. But while it's still here, we need to still be in it. And what they showed me in this particular unpacking in my records is that we know the earth is shifting. She is, and we know that we at times are in our 3D, in her 3D blueprint, and she's in her 4D blueprint, and she is also in her 5D blueprint. And that we are moving, flowing between these three states. And in these three states are different states. So there's lower 3D, higher 3D, lower 4D, higher 4D, lower 5D, higher 5D. And we are placing ourselves somewhere in that. There's a certain place or space within these timelines that we are more comfortable with. But we know when we're having to go renew our driver's license, or we're having to maybe do something within our bank account, we have to take ourselves, wherever we place ourselves more comfortably, and drop down into possibly a more 3D space for that particular activity. And then when we're meditating and we're connected and we're in these juicy places, we could then possibly be in a 5D state, but we are vacillating between all three states and all different levels within these three states. Just like the earth is, she is evolving, and we want to evolve with her. So the message was that as wealth consciousness changes, as exchange of currency, as currency changes, we want to be in a position where we are actually grounded into all of those different emanations of our Earth Mother, knowing that Earth is actually her 3D vibrancy, 5D is her Tara vibrancy, and Gaia is actually her 7D frequency. So we are between Earth and Tara, and we want to be able to move with this. So in a 3D state with money on Earth, where it's very much money, exchange of money. Then we go to 4D, which I don't have a name for the 4D state, but if you do, you can pop it in the comments, and you can educate me today and everyone else that will read the comments. In the 4D state, this is when we start shifting a little bit, and we start, yes, still having to work with money, as an exchange, but we also start seeing that there is space for bartering, for exchange beyond the physical element of actual money. And then I believe when we are truly in 5D, and that's what I believe we are in 5D yet, we might play in 5D, we might visit 5D, but I doubt whether any of us are actually fully embodied in 5D, because I believe then the currency is heart. How that's going to look, how that's going to be, I have no idea. So I believe 3D is very much still an earthly, physical exchange. 4D is playing a little bit between the 3D and the 5D. So there's physical exchange, and then there's maybe a hearted exchange, a bartering that comes, and very selectively, because I was part of many groups a couple of even decades ago where there was this trading going on, but it was never congruent, was never conscious. It was just like, oh, well, I want that, so now because I want that, let's barter. And there was never a win-win. There was always somebody that would be compromising. Whereas I find with myself now that the bartering and the exchanging that I'm doing from more of a heart sense and more of a non-monetary exchange is that I can do it very consciously and really decide who I'm going to exchange what with, so that it feels very, very aligned and very congruent for both parties in the win-win. And so 4D, we're playing with both of these actualities, and then 5D is a heart currency. And what they showed me is that we really want to be able to move with Earth into her Tara, her 5D blueprint. And in order to do that, we need to go back to basics. We need to go back to how money actually originated. And this was in 2022 that I was receiving this information. This is 2 years ago. So we know that in the last 24 months, we have a lot of new information, new exposure to that, knowing that our currency has no value. And that with us adorning ourselves within and of this currency that has no value, we've been believing that it's bringing us abundance, prosperity, and wealth. But the truth is, when that currency folds, when it collapses, if we have attached all of our belief and our embodiment into our wealth consciousness, into the currency, when it collapses, so then is our self-esteem. All of that. I know in sales, I had to unhook my self-esteem from my sales. Just like now, we are having to unhook our self-esteem, our confidence, our belief in success from our bank account, because we should know that we are worthy beyond our bank account. We are abundant beyond our bank account. We are prosperous beyond our bank account, and we are wealthy and healthy beyond our bank account. Because when that currency that has no value crashes, we don't want to crash alongside with it. And they gave me a little bit of a history, which I then went back and actually researched. And they sent me back, and they actually became quite comical with me. They were like, it was very light-hearted, even though the subject is so dense and so heavy for a lot of us. They were very, very light and humorous with me. And they were, just lending my mind back to a time where our wealth, any country's wealth, was commodity backed. And if you're part of, the need to know, you know that BRICS, BRICS, which South Africa is a part of, is really wanting to come back to that commodity backing. That at some point when I think the Federal Reserve, I stand to be corrected, this was 2 years ago when this information came through, when the Federal Reserve was handed over to America, and the gold standard, I think, was dropped in some way. that's when electronic printing of money came out, and there was no backing. There was no backing of, you could just print money, and there was no land or gold backing, or there was no commodity back in the day when, I think, back to my South African history, Jan van Riebeeck came in 1829 or something. I stand to be corrected. But we had the surge of spices, and that coming from India. And I remember reading somewhere where salt and spices were traded as a currency, and then gold was found and made into coins, and gold was used as a exchange, a commodity. Land became, and people bought land, and land became, and so everything had, so the currency was backed by a commodity, which it no longer is. And this is the sort of concern out there, is that when the currency as we know it collapses because it has no value to it, then where are we if we, aren't at least riding this evolution of our planet? And so, yes, they were taking me back to, silver and gold coins. They were taking me back, and then they laughed. They said to me, like, why do you think money generally is, green? Because green is synonymous with wealth, isn't it? And then they're like, this is where they brought in the nature code. Okay, this is where they coupled wealth consciousness with nature. Gold, silver, spices, salt, land, all nature derived. And they were like, in order to ride these evolutions within this planet, the only stability you can have is through aligning your wealth consciousness with that of the nature code. And then they laughed, and they were like, even money comes from trees, because yes, there's that saying, I know I was brought up with it, of, do you think money grows off trees? And actually it does. If you think about paper comes from trees. Money actually does come from trees. Thank you very much. So we reclaim that. Absolutely, money grows from trees, because paper money is paper, comes from trees. So that was very, very comical. And I did a little bit of research, and I have a whole pack of my coins, South African coins. So there's R1 coin and a 50 cents and a 20 cents from the year I was born. I was born, as I mentioned before, 1978. So my uncle used to collect coins, and he blessed all the family with their year of birth, with their pack of coins. And when I was researching, just how far back, we had silver coins in particular, I got the information that in 1965, prior to 1965, all of our R1 coins, so the South African R1 coin, this big R1 coin, which sure is the size of a bottle, almost as big as a bottle top, but it's quite large, right? Was made in pure silver. So yeah, it was a few years short of having a pure silver R1 coin. So every R1 coin in South Africa prior to 1965, I stand to be corrected, but it is the research that I attained, were and was of silver. And then it obviously started changing, and different metals were used. So this comes to the wealth code activation. It's actually aligning to your nature code. And there is a unique nature code that you vibrate to. So the interesting thing is, and I won't tell you what mine is, only because I don't want to, obscure the expectation. So they showed me mine, and it made so much sense. This is the interesting things. All of the wealth code, nature code activations I've been privileged to witness and be a part of have actually been incredibly like knowing to the client, to the person receiving. It's like, oh, well, that makes sense. Oh, wow, yes, of course. So mine was no different. But this is the interesting part. I was just in my records exploring something for myself, getting this activation, getting all this information, and then they were like, well, would you like to receive your unique nature code? I'm like, absolutely. They showed me it. They showed, they shared with me a few things that I needed to release and realign to and reattune and recalibrate to, and off I went. And I was in a client session like I normally am, and all of a sudden, like, the guards are saying to me, and it's not a big bellowing voice. If you know me, like I say they and we, but I actually have no idea who they or we are. I completely trust when I'm in the records, complete trust. And the message that came through was, that activation that you received a couple of days ago in your records around wealth and nature code activations. Well, we want you to do it on this client now. And I was like, poker face. I was like, oh, isn't that interesting? Well, dear client, I've just got this that they would like to introduce this nature code, and the client was absolutely game. And what surprised me, I thought the nature code would be the same thing, because mine was just made so much sense that it would be everyone's nature code, right? Just go back to that basic nature code. And they were like, no. Remember, this is a unique nature code, a unique wealth code. And they actually took me to, which I have no understanding of. I'm not a zoologist or a whatever you want to call it, but into a certain element in the tectonic plates of this earth plane. That this was this client's nature code. And I was completely blown. And yet for the client, there was a resonance in it, because this client had this interest in the tectonic plates and the interest in the core's crust, and I have no idea. And even though I didn't understand the element, we were able to connect into that particular element that was needed, even though I didn't have a word for it. And maybe I did, because I'm going back 2 years ago. So I just remember that I had actually spoken into a part of the nature code when I didn't want to, but it's okay. So I'll just probably gone a bit red now, because the very thing I wanted to really leave as an open, exploration, if you were called to do this activation, was really to come with absolutely no expectation. So that is just a small example. I always share what my nature wealth code is after the session. So I will share that with you if we had to share space. But for now, we'll just leave it at that one particular example. and just as an example of how unique a wealth nature code gets to be for you. And that when you align yourself in and within your unique wealth nature code, that you evolve alongside our Mother Earth into her fifth dimension frequency of Tara, that as she evolves into her higher frequencies, so do you, because now you are aligned with the truth of wealth consciousness, because it is aligned with the nature code, and nature is going to align and evolve with her, and so do you. So does your ability to tap into the truth of your wealth consciousness. So we are here to be stabilized within our most abundant selves. We get to do that now. So from my heart to yours, I am offering this in a few ways, so you can connect with me on how you can realign, remember, and reacclimate to your unique nature code, to your unique wealth code, because this unique nature wealth code that you vibrate to is as unique to you as your own fingerprint. That is then interwoven into the cosmic fabric of nature. And just by that example that I shared, like who in their wildest dreams would have ever thought or anticipated that just like your unique fingerprint, that your unique nature code could be aligned and connected to an element within the structure of the core of the earth plane in those tectonic plates. So I would love to guide you, to share space with you around your unique wealth and nature codes. If you're feeling drawn to this, please reach out. I will give you all the information below on how we can share space together and remember, reconnect and realign and reattune to that part of you that knows how to be in your most abundant, prosperous, wealthy, healthy self. So with every blessing from my heart to yours, beautiful rest of your day, your afternoon, your evening, and I look forward to sharing space with you soon. Bye-bye now.